We sit here just over a month until release during a dev cycle that has been difficult to say the least. What are your overall feelings right now as we sit here in early October?
Oh, wow. Like everyone is asking this question, and my typical answer is an anxiety, an extreme level of anxiety, because on one hand, we are pretty determined to deliver it on the date. At the same time, the team has never delivered the game of this size for decades, right? And for everyone, it's a new experience, full of expectations. And for many people it's controversial, because when you're deep into work for many years, having almost no of external feedback, you tend to overthink things, right? I would say it's a little bit anxious. At the same time, every time we receive additional feedback, like we invited you to see your reaction. We've been on the Gamescom. You're observing how people reacting on the game. That makes us more comfortable, because some things which we tend to overthink is getting obvious we were overthinking. On the other hand, we are paying attention to something we could miss. So we are determined but anxious, yes. Mm-hmm. Currently, when we're working on the game, we think that keeping this level of gameplay, if we are not treating the players as a kids who needs constant guidance, we are leaving them the opportunity to figure out what the rules of this world. It's something that actually reflects the zone and the essence of the zone better than anything else, because no one in the zone will explain you that you need to use special artifacts to prevent you from dying of the radiation, right? Because who cares?
Yeah.
Right? That's the zone. No one care about you. It's a dangerous place, and if we would be leading the players through this experience, they won't get it themselves. They won't feel the zone as it should be. So, in our case, I would say we make it on purpose, and I can say for the other games for sure.
Was there any trade-offs where some things you thought, this is a little bit too video gamey to stay in, this doesn't really fit with the tone that you're trying to deliver?
No, obviously, constantly, because when you're developing the game, you're working a lot with the references, and sometimes things that could be could work for some purposes. Let's say for the player guidance, you can leave the marks, so players will always know that this is the golden path. You're following this way. You're getting the fastest route. We need to rethink every time the level of I'm missing the word obviousness. The level of how it's obvious to the players from the perspective, actually, will they learn anything from it, right? And at the same time, we had several clashes on some simple things, like if we need to color this ladder or not, because it shouldn't be colored in the zone. At the same time, people need some guidance to interact with something. So we all the time facing these kind of challenges. We have an internal talks. In the end of the day, only play tests and only reaction of the players show us what's got to be the way. Sometimes it makes some players upset. At the same time, we know that many things that might be perceived by the players as okay, they didn't do this highlighting. Why? Because you need to learn it yourself. So yeah, it's always challenging, and in the end of the day, the solution is always to play test it and see who was right in the end. In practice, we have the the skeleton of the main story. We are building the side stories around it. We are building the open world stories in between. And at the same time, there is a huge thing that provides additional experience to the player and tries to guide him between all of these events, which is alive. Because it could happen in any moment, but we are trying to find the right moment to show to the player the right alive event. So it will either amplify player's experience or push him back to, fulfill your needs if you're just like overextending into the zone.
I wanted to talk about the tone of the game from a narrative perspective, because it's a game that can, from what I've played, this is the second time I've played it now, it can vacillate between being very scary, very intense, when you only have a limited amount of ammo, but it can also be quite funny, quite light-hearted. The dialogue is like very entertaining. How do you strike the balance between that tone, and do you think that's integral to the type of game it is?
I wouldn't say that we are relying here on what we want to do as the game, right? But we are mostly trying to think like what you as a person would experience within the zone. Because let's say people who are coming to the exclusion zone in Chernobyl, they find it both scary and beautiful at the same time. So we are designing the game that, depending on many circumstances, it could be perceived as scary or beautiful. If the weather is changing and you see the sun is rising, you may see that the place you've been in before, a forest where you could meet the bloodsucker accidentally, is actually full of beautiful flowers, and it's not that scary as it was before, until the moment you hear the footsteps behind your back. So having this kind of a roller coaster between, you see it beautiful, you see it scary, like that's what makes the zone, and that's what we were trying to achieve.
I wanted to touch on that because it's a very graphically impressive game. I was walking around in kind of the early morning time in the game, and it's very beautiful. Almost looks it's like a walking simulator or something like that, when you're just walking through the field, and then suddenly you see a hut and there's a body there. All the bodies I've came across so far have been named. Is that intentionality to give the sense of all these people had existed in the zone and they're not just nameless bodies at that point?
In the zone, you typically, you can survive just like that. You can just walk in and walk out. Many people who are living in there, they join in some factions. They either stalkers, bandits, and so on. And the community of the zone is rather small, like comparing to big cities, right? So people know each other, and when we are showing the name of the person, like you can see that it's not just a random person. It's someone who had the story, someone who had his desires and who had his affiliation to some factions. So it feels more natural. Additionally, you could find the PDA on this body, and you can find some additional details to find out what was happening. So yeah, like adding the names is something that makes the game more personal in terms of the story you see around.
And just on that, when adding the PDAs and things like that to bodies you find, how do you make it feel naturalistic, so it's not kind of a cliche of someone giving their final thoughts or something like that? It doesn't break the immersion of the game.
Oh, there are many things, there is not just like silver bullet, we do it this way, and there's the thing, so next titles like everyone is using now. In practice, that's the composition of many things. It's about time, it's about place, it's about the essence. So time and place, it's about when you're finding it, place, it's in what kind of circumstances you find it. So environment storytelling is an important thing here. Yet you have noticed the part of the names. That's one of the intentional design things which are adding to their stories. So I can't name a silver bullet. It's about the writing you're putting in, and it's about the tiny details which are surrounding these events.
And you can almost see in the game the elements that if another company was making this title would have been modernized, such as like, I don't know, more indication of hit markers when you shoot things or when you're being shot. How important was it to stay so close to the original vision, and has that wavered at all during the development?
Well, that was one of the key pillars, I would say, because this game is known as something that survived through years thanks to modders and PC community. So we can't just give up and say, guys, okay, so we have now a huge audience, so let's forget it was a hardcore shooter. No, we have to respect it. And the game is built around the fact that Zone is an easy place. That's why a lot of the elements from the original game has been moved to Stalker 2. There is still huge control over your needs. So you need to take care of your sleepiness. You need to take care of your hunger level. Many essential elements are there on purpose, and that's mostly because we were thinking that we can't modify it heavily, otherwise it won't be the Stalker 2, it would be some other game. For us, the release of the game is not just at the end of the story, just the beginning. So after the release, we will be closely observing the reaction of all of the parts of the audience and see what we could do to satisfy most of them. Like, we can't satisfy all of them, obviously. Most of them without losing the original identity of the game. So obviously for more casual players, we are going to have easy mode. So if you are not the guy who wants to be constantly challenged and watching your step at every moment, you may just launch the easy mode, enjoy the story, and enjoy the beautiful beautiness of the zone. Have some kind of a challenge. So we try to make it accessible. At the same time, like, if you're a hardcore player, like that's the game for you.
And do you think this might spark a renaissance in the genre of hardcore shooters?
I hope, being a spark of something is always, like you could just hope for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know myself several games which are also in development, but which can take the similar approach as we do. And yeah, when you put it this way, like you put it in my head now, I can't stop thinking of it. Yeah, I would be hoping for that. Yeah.
And now that we're so close to release and you're playing through the entire game, is it the vision you had at the start of this process? Is it turned out how you wanted it to? And what surprises have been thrown up other than obviously the real world ones?
Oh, you mean, I would say that the real world circumstances, they change more than you think, because like with every challenge we had from the real life, we always had to adapt some things. Let's say, like even a year ago when we had the fire, it not just like when we had a fire in the office, it's not just unified us once again, but changed the direction of some things, because it allowed us to rethink what we should do, what we shouldn't, and actually give up on some ideas and amplify the others. So I can't, I can disclose details on the design and design decisions, because it's something for the future talks. At the same time, like everything was happening around was slightly changing what's in the game. Let's say, okay, one of the stories I can tell actually. We in the original game we had a well-known arena where you could fight the other stalkers or people from the other factions on this arena. And when we had a fire, we had to restore all of the work we had before. And arena was about to be cut, because we couldn't pull it out of our repository. Like, we tried over and over again. Like, we almost said, okay, so it's cut. And one of our developers, he spent a few additional nights cherry picking himself every file to bring it back, revive, and yeah, it's got to be in there. So, you know, like, we shouldn't underestimate the real life implications on the game development. We are going to launch mod support. I can say if we would be able to make it on the day 0, but it's planned for one of our first patches, and we are heavily relying on mod community. We already have several connections and requests from the people who are working on Stalker 1 to do some stuff with us, right? So yeah, mod community is still our target. We will do our best to satisfy their needs as soon as we are done with the base game, and we can shift our focus to make it better and better with the modders.